All right, thank you all for joining us tonight. It is 6 p.m. on January 23rd, 2023. This is the virtual public input workshop on the Healthy West Orange Pavilion. Hopefully everybody can hear me. First thing we do is typically to go through some housekeeping items. One is just please hold all your questions until the presentation is over. Hopefully throughout the presentation, we'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. Second of which is if you're going to direct a comment or a question, please do that to either town staff or some of the engineers that are on the line tonight. The reason for that is we don't want to get into a back and forth with various residents. Everybody has their special opinion and people don't like public speaking, but when they do that, they want to make sure that they're heard. And we're here to listen to you, the public, tonight. So after the presentation that we have, we'll go ahead and start the Q&A. And we do want to be respectful of everybody's time. So please keep your comments, questions succinct. So if you hear the same question earlier that's been answered, there's probably no need to answer that again. We will be videotaping this, so you're going to be able to share this with all of your friends, family members, and your neighbors. We do have all of town council on, as well as our town engineer, John Fitzgibbon. We have our public works director, Tanya Elliott Moore on, as well as various other people that have been involved in this project from the very beginning. I do want to start off a little bit on a somber note, but I do want to recognize the fact that in the last month and a half, a lot of you that are on the line tonight, which is actually, I think we're hitting a record. I think we have about 64 on tonight, but we lost some pillars of the community. First we lost Steve Potts, we lost Peggy Collins, we lost Raleigh Allen, and we recently lost Jackie Rapport. So our thoughts, prayers, and hearts go out to their families. And, again, they're pillars of our community, and we just want to make sure that we recognize their service. With that said, again, I am going to be administrator, presenter, moderator. So please bear with me. I'm letting people in as we go along. I'm videotaping this, and I'm going to go ahead and do the presentation. So there might be a little lag in what we do, but what we'll do is make sure as we answer all of your questions tonight, because this is public input. We want to hear from you, what your concerns are, what your comments are, and provide whatever information we have to you. And if we don't have the information tonight, we'll make sure that we get that information to you as soon as we possibly can. Okay, and with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, as I said, we're here to talk about the Healthy West Orange Pavilion. So a little background here, and this actually, the agreements predate when we first started talking about the pavilion, and you'll see that in the scheduled dates that we have later on in the presentation. But there was an agreement between the West Orange Healthcare District and the Windermere Rotary, Inc. And I'll explain the difference between that in a minute. But that agreement was entered into on May 5th, 2021. And it was that if we can have everybody go ahead and mute, please, just so there's no interference. So the Rotary receives $1 million in grant funds from the West Orange Healthcare District to construct a healthy West Orange Pavilion in the town of Windermere. The grant funds are not to be paid to the town of Windermere. The first payment of funds upon signature of the grant agreement was $200,000. Second of the grant funds within 30 days, so on and so forth. But the grants provide that if the Rotary does not complete the pavilion complete the pavilion, it may be considered a mutual breach of the grant, allowing the West Orange Healthcare District to require repayment of some or all of the grant funds. The requirements are that the construction begin with 18 months, and then they have 3 years in which to construct the pavilion. So then there was an agreement between the district, Rotary, Inc., and then there had to be an agreement between Rotary, Inc. and the town of Windermere because they're placing the pavilion on Town of Windermere property. That agreement was entered into on June 22nd, 2021, and Town Council acknowledged the receipt of the $1 million grant funds, the approval of the construction of the pavilion with certain conditions, and then for all Rotary events, requires Rotary to schedule the town manager, obtain a special event permit through the town regular special event permit process. Basically, if they wanted to go ahead and have an event that they were going to put on, they would have to follow the same process as everybody else. But the town did agree to hold at least one Healthy West Orange event. And that was part of the agreement that the town struck with Rotary Inc. So there's a lot of confusion of, okay, is this the
Progress.
Rotary? Hey, Tom, can you go and mute, bud?
I'm sorry. I'm just
No
switching
worries,
up.
man. Yeah, you're good. So again, those agreements were struck in 2021, but this, you'll see in the schedule it predates all that. And what is the difference between the Rotary Club of Windermere that meets at 6:54 every Tuesday morning versus the Windermere Rotary Club Inc.? Well, the Windermere Rotary Club is not a 501c3. The Windermere Rotary Club Inc. is a 501c3, and that is made up of certain members that are a part of Rotary, but may not be part of Rotary. I'm not sure, but they are a separate organization. So you have to separate the two. So you have the club, then you have the Rotary Inc. And the Rotary Inc. is the one that entered into the agreement with the district. So that's where the difference is when you hear, okay, well, this is a Windermere Rotary Club project. It's actually not. It's a Windermere Rotary Club Inc. project, which is a separate group from the club itself. I know it's confusing, but that is what it is. So we began this endeavor back in 2019, and the reason I'm showing you this graphic of all the meetings is not to say that, oh my gosh, you guys have missed the boat. We have been discussing this forever. It's the 11th hour. We need to keep pushing forward, so on and so forth. As I said before, Tom, I'm going to go ahead and mute you, bud. As I said before, there's no gun to our head. They have to start the project within 18 months. Then they have 3 years in order to complete the project. So our intent tonight is to listen to you, the community. Again, doesn't matter if it's the first hour, 12th hour, whatever it is, to get a feeling of what the community wants, because whatever we construct, we want to make sure that the community is accepting of it and agreeable with whatever we put out there. But this is just to give you a schedule of exactly when we started talking about this and what public meetings have been scheduled where we actually talked about this in a public forum. So we started talking about this in January of 2019. Anytime you see an underlined meeting that is a publicly advertised meeting, where it was either through LRP, DRB, or the town council, where we discussed various things. And the town council has been involved in this process to make sure that we were part of the selection of the designers, the architects, so on and so forth. And we do have John Fitzgibbon as a third-party reviewer of everything that Rotary Club Inc. Has been doing with the funds given to them through the Healthy West Orange district. So again, per my count, there's probably like 6 or 7 public meetings that we've actually had. But from what the best way that I can do these meetings is to actually, some people are like, well, in other communities, they don't go door to door. Well, what we like to do is make sure that we go to door. So we put on the door hangers, make sure that everybody's aware within 500 feet. We advertise as much as possible to get people involved. And that typically gets the ball rolling when it comes to public input. So I think, with the assistance of you, the residents, as well as, the hard work of Public Works and, just making sure we get the word out there that based on the attendance we have tonight, it's really great. This is exactly what we want, is the public input and the public involvement on something like this. And I'm sorry, I can't read all of your comments at this time right now. Because again, I'm playing like 3 different roles. So the first thing I want to go through is frequently asked questions. These are questions that typically come up. And by the way, my phone number, my email, my cell number is all available to you. So if you all have a question about, is this true or not? Or is this something that, I need to go ahead and fact check, always feel free to give me a call or an email. I'm very accessible. Everybody knows that. I'll be more than happy to tell you, yes, this is true. No, that's not true. Or it's kind of true, but there's a little gray area in that, and that's what we can talk about. So the first thing is can we use these funds elsewhere on different projects within the town? No, the funds cannot be used or have to be used to construct a pavilion as specified in the grant agreement between the Rotary Inc. and the West Orange Healthcare District. I've seen a lot of emails, and believe me, we received over 50 some odd emails from you, the residents, relative to this specific project. But this agreement is specific to the pavilion and the exercise equipment. It has nothing to do with the trail system that we're interconnecting and utilizing with other jurisdictions. We're working with the district, Oakland, Ocoee, Winter Garden, Orange County, Gotha, on interconnecting our system to make sure that we have an entire system in West Orange County that we're able to bike, ride, and hit major points of interest within those areas. That'll be a process that takes about 4 years, and I think they dedicated between $2 to $5 million for that project. Another question always comes up is the pavilion owned by the Rotary Inc. or the district? No. Once everything is constructed, it'll be turned over to the town. We'll have perpetual maintenance, and we have 100% say of what happens and when things happen at that pavilion. Does Rotary Inc. have exclusive rights to the concession stand? Yes. And this is like one of the big things that everybody keeps asking me, but it would only be for Rotary events that are approved by the town manager, by town council, and also for Healthy West Orange events that are approved by town manager and town council. So what will be the procedure to approve future events? I think a great example is what we did with the holiday, I guess, caroling chorus celebration. When I received that special event permit, the first thing I wanted to do is make sure that we had public input from the residents that are adjacent to that area within 500 feet, and also the town council. So when somebody submits a special event permit, what they would do is they would list out exactly what they're looking to do, how many people are going to show up, what type of things they're going to need, and then we would evaluate that and then take it to town council. Prior to it going to town council, we'll follow the same MO as we did with the holiday event and get the input from the public on whether or not we want to have this event. The reason for that is, again, we understand your concerns with parking. We understand your concerns with the amount of events that we have. So we want to be sympathetic to that as much as possible. So we'll follow that same type of MO that we did before. Another item that keeps coming up was once the pavilion is constructed, the town will approve more and more events. Kind of like if you build it, they will come. That's not the case. The intent, I believe in 2019 all the way through 2021, and I think it is today, is that the purpose and intent of the pavilion is to support existing events held by the various boards and committees. Now, will every board and committee utilize, the pavilion? No, they don't have a need for it. Maybe for announcements or something like that, but they just don't have the need that other committees may require, whether, like for food truck night, we have bands, DJs, we're able to utilize the pavilion to direct the music away from those that live on Forest Street. But for other organizations, they may not need that because it just doesn't fit in with their program or their special event. But again, the intent is to help supplement, those boards and committees that do need a stage or can utilize that open air area for music, entertainment, so on and so forth. So another question too is, will the town approve competing special events? And one of the things came up was, well, it's Healthy West Orange. We're going to go ahead and, approve all these races. We're going to approve, more food truck events, stuff like that. The town is not in a position to compete with existing events. We don't want to take away from events that have been successful in the past. And we don't want to take away from events that have ongoing relationships with sponsors, because then we have the same groups going over after the same sponsors, and that will just drain the money that is coming into the town and going to assist HPB, tree board, other committees and boards and stuff like that. So we don't want to create more events that are going to create more traffic, create more attendance, create more, competition between those boards and committees. The only exception that we have right now with events that are not in-house, really, as far as the proceeds and stuff like that, is the art fair. And that is something that I'm sure the town's going to take a look at in the future and see if we can do that in-house through one of the boards and committees. Will there be additional parking constructed behind the pavilion? If you take a look at the October 26th Town Council workshop, and unfortunately I wasn't able to attend that one, but I think John and Tanya and everybody did a great job. The same questions that you guys came up with during this whole process over last month in your emails, they were the same almost exact questions that came up at that October 26th workshop. And those are things that I think the engineers tried to address. And those are things that we can still continue to address to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what we're doing or whatever direction the town council moves forward with. The exercise equipment. The project as defined in the grant agreement includes exercise stations and exercise areas around the pavilion. So the town will continue to work with Rotary Inc., the district, on the best locations for these areas, and will help with, the assistance of Parks and Recreation too. We understand, with the events that we currently have, there's a lot of foot traffic, there's a lot of kids. So we don't want to make sure, we just don't want, areas that become liabilities or areas that become concerning relative to, either vandalism or something like that. Maybe we can work with the Rotary Inc. and the district on putting those in places either at parks, along the trail system that we're looking to construct, so on and so forth, more appropriate places than that. So the first graphic I have for you tonight is the one that was presented on October 26th. This shows you what the initial orientation is of the pavilion. Over here, you would have a concession, you would have storage, electrical, and then you would have bathrooms. The bathrooms would be 3 stalls each, 3 sinks, and then you would have family restrooms over here to the north of the pavilion itself, with the stage in the middle. Now, when you saw some of the graphics that were posted at the last meeting, it showed the basketball courts coming all the way up to here and being a little square. But if everybody can see my pointer right now, we have two basketball courts. We have the kids basketball court, or for the adults that can't dunk. And then we have the other basketball court that's right here. And currently this little area for like free throws where we currently do not have a basketball hoop. This shows you, again, the initial design and where they are at with the design of the pavilion itself. Electrical, storage, concessions, bathrooms, family restrooms. And then you see here the sidewalk, the steps to the stage, steps off the stage, and then the handicap ramp that goes up the north side of the structure itself. And here is the town hall. Now, I know it was mentioned at the last meeting that, they tried to set it up as the same footprint as the previous community room and bathrooms. So when we're looking to progress with the construction of this project, because it was, approved by previous town councils or this town council, when we checked out the community room, which is pretty much an unsafe structure itself, we had to take the bathrooms with it because it was all interconnected. I would have loved to keep the bathrooms separate to keep it going, but unfortunately, we're having to take the entire thing down. And by doing that, again, I understand that people now enjoy the open space that it brings and stuff like that, and we could talk about that too. But this shows you the footprint of the old structure, which you can see with my cursor, hopefully. And then the pavilion, which horseshoes over towards the east. And again, the reasons for that would be acoustics. And I can get into what the engineers have talked about on the 26th, what they're still talking about. And I'm going to butcher this word, but they are looking at getting, Bill, if you can help me out. I texted you earlier with this one. Sorry, I wrote this down. Acousticians, that is a word. So they would have somebody that is an expert on sound, on how sound travels, to make sure that, as far as the noise levels that are currently, the people on Forest all the way down to where Tom lives, they're having to deal with on a daily basis, not daily basis, but with events, it will direct it towards, the commercial district and lessen the impacts to the people that live on Forest all the way down on Butler and 7th and so on. So the intent is to enhance the sound over in that area. But it's acousticians is the name of the third-party vendors or engineers that would come in and take a look at it. And again, I did not make that up. So here is the most up-to-date rendering based upon the October 26th Town Council workshop. It was, to soften it up, make it look like more like the town hall, the Cal Palmer building, to use landscaping. And again, any landscaping that's going to be used for this facility will be in concert for what the tree board would like. And it gives you a scale as well as to the height of the people and the size of the pavilion itself. And so this should give you another scale too. And I do admit, the last rendering that was showed on the October 26th, as you get further along in the process, you get more details, you get more information on exactly what it's going to look like. And I think on October 26th, it was more preliminary, just trying to get the site plan, trying to get, okay, this is, how the layout's going to be before they actually got into the meat and potatoes of actually what the intent was going to be. But I think that these reflect, I think, some of the responses to what town council had and some of the residents had to those initial designs. So a lot of the concerns that were either voiced or emailed to the town were, number one, to eliminate the project, keep the open space, two, reconsider the size, design, and location. Everybody, a lot of people that live on Forest and even over to Oakdale, they had noise concerns or sound concerns, parking in crowds, additional events. Some people are just completely against the concession stand. They were worried about the impacts to eliminating the green space. And, some just said, listen, why can't we just build bathrooms? So we're going to go through all these and, discuss some of these various options or some of the issues that come with some of these options. So let's just eliminate this project once and for all. So what would be the repercussions to the town? Since the project was approved by town council, the consequences could be that the town may be responsible for the costs already incurred by Rotary, Inc. For the implementation of the project. The cost can be between $75,000 and $300,000 right now. Right now they're in design. I think that 300,000 number is really, really high. So I don't think our exposure is going to be that much, but we'll confirm for future meetings on what that exposure will be if town council decides, listen, we just want to nix this, keep the open space, so on and so forth. But the specific amount of grant dollars already spent has not been verified just yet, but these are our best estimates. And I would say between 75 and 150 tops. So I don't want to throw that $300,000 number out there and scare anybody and say that we're too pot committed to move forward one way or the other. Another major concern that we saw was, the concession stand. The project, as stated in the grant agreement, includes the concession stand and was approved by town council. So if the town council now wants to revise the project, then the Rotary Inc. will need to amend the grant agreement with the district. And then the district can go ahead and reduce the amount of the total project cost, for that balance that would have been used for a concession stand. Again, that's something that we can talk about, we can debate and go over as far as, the pros and cons of whether or not you want the community and town council wants a concession stand at that location. Again, the Rotary Inc. has exclusive rights to the concession just for Rotary events and for that Healthy West Orange event. Anything else would be requirement of myself, town council, and we require that public input. So is there a compromise that's out there? Some people are against, some people are for, some people are in the middle. Is there a compromise where we can work something out? And a lot of the emails that we saw were to reconsider the size, the design, the location. Again, those sound concerns we'll talk about, parking crowds, additional events, and then eliminating the green space. So reconsider the size, design, location. So town staff, we've had a great record with working with the community on these projects, whether it's a stormwater project, a multimodal path project, or any type of project. I think that we're one of the best when it comes to communicating with the public, with the door knockers, and stuff like that. So we want to gain as much information from you, the public, as possible when it comes to these projects that are going to outlast all of us and be part of our community for many, many years to come. So we want to make sure that if we do this, we do it right. So some of the questions always come up: can the pavilion be moved back? We talked about that on the October 26th. We were worried about some trees, the septic system. But that's something that I think that ZHA, John, and some of the other engineers can possibly take a look at. Can the size be reduced? I know that the north side is longer than the east side or the south side. You know, can it be reduced to make and still ensure that we still have ADA compliance, you know, all that stuff. And can the design be more in concert with Town Hall, Cal Palmer building, and the new town facilities? Again, as you start off with the project, as we did with the new facilities, you know, you start with something that's very vanilla, and then you get into more and more details. So these are things that I believe town staff, town council, and, you know, the engineers of record are willing to listen to and make amendments as they can within reason, to make sure, again, that this is something that is going to be a welcomed addition, as opposed to, which I heard today, was a red sign addition. And I hate bringing up that darn red sign. And sorry, Stephen, but I had to use one of your pieces of artwork without your permission. But again, you know, these are things that come up that we can take a look at. We can consider, see what the pros and cons are, or maybe we can even incorporate it into what we have currently designed. And that's what we're here to listen to today. So Stephen came up with this idea, you know, something that maybe we can take a look at. The courts are a little bit off, but, you know, just making sure that we have, you know, a lot of green space, that, you know, the possibility of maybe putting the restrooms in the back. It all depends on where we need to put the septic, where, you know, what tree impacts we'll have, so on and so forth. But again, there's ideas that are out there that we're more than happy to welcome, as long as they make engineering sense, and we're able to fit it in that space that we had the original concept for. So the sound concerns. How will this pavilion increase or decrease the sound from the various events? Well, with the pavilion, the sound can be directed away from those residents in the areas where they typically now hear the noise, which I discussed before. Whether it's the stage, the DJs, the direction of that sound can be directed towards the commercial district. And again, they'll have the acousticians, whatever they want to call them, to take a look at that and make sure that, you know, it's been properly studied, and, you know, just like a photometric plan when it comes to lighting, that there would be no real noise pollution. Not saying it's going to eliminate all of it, but lessen the noise pollution that occurs during these events to the neighbors, to make sure that, you know, their quality of life is, you know, staying as it is. Will the sound travel now to Oakdale and others? With the redirecting, we'll have to talk to the experts and see what we can do to make sure that doesn't happen. This will be something that the engineers will have to address. Parking and crowds, man, I don't have a silver bullet for this, and I'm going to admit that. You know, with the success of all the events that we have, we are trying to do what we can to either get into lease agreements, provide additional parking, direct people to adequate parking, to advocate for them to ride share. But this will be a continuing problem that staff will have to address. And we're not ignoring you. We're not ignoring the fact that they park on your, you know, in front of your homes, along the right of way. So we're continuously working on trying to reconcile that. And we will continue to do so, whether or not, or whatever happens with this project. Additional events. As I said before, the purpose and intent of the pavilion was to support existing events held by the various towns, boards and committees, or various towns, boards and committees. And those proceeds from those boards and committees go directly back to the town. So the tree board gets the farmer's market monies go back to the town. Historical Preservation Board, they operate the food trucks. So the food truck money goes back to the town for historical preservation. And Parks and Recreation with their Pet Fest, Run on the Lakes. Again, those monies go directly back to the town. Again, whether or not all of them use the stage, which I would say as far as the pavilion itself, is to be determined by that various board committee. They can use it, they don't have to use it, but it's there for availability. I know that as indicated here for the food trucks, the foundation events that we currently have, they do use that. They use stages, DJs, and typically a stage is about $1,500. But for the bathrooms themselves, that can save an additional $500, if not more, depending upon the size of the event and how many days that event is. So create more green space. Now, please, this is just an idea. I don't want you to say this is set in stone or whatever it was. But currently we have 2 basketball courts, and this is from my own brain. This has nothing to do with engineers or anything like that. But again, we have the kids basketball court, full court, and then we have the adult full court. We can possibly add additional green space in front of the pavilion if we were to eliminate that one little free throw line that doesn't have a hoop anyway. And then by adjusting the sidewalk to be adjacent to the perimeter of that basketball court. So what you would gain would be an additional area all throughout here. This is not something that have brought to Parks and Recreation. Again, it's something that we're brainstorming in order for us to accommodate more green space, more open space in front of the stage area for the various events. For a little square piece that just sticks out, and then the sidewalk pretty much goes straight through the middle. So this is something that, again, we would take to Parks and Recreation and what other board and committee that we need approval for, or if you guys are in favor or against it. The basketball courts would remain. People have talked about moving the basketball courts. If you move something, then you have a whole new can of worms to deal with. It's easier to keep something where it's at rather than to build something new, like when we were talking about moving the public works facility. If you keep it and enhance it, people enjoy it. If you build it new somewhere, then you get a lot of opposition. So the only issue here would be losing one basketball rim. And again, we would move that basketball or the sidewalk further to the east to be adjacent to those basketball courts. And again, with every project, the town works in concert with the town arborist, as recommended by the tree board, and the tree board itself on if we need to remove a tree or any replanting plans that we have for any of these projects. Can we just add the restrooms? Again, this is something that would have to be addressed between the district and Rotary Inc. and see if they can come to terms with that. But again, those restrooms would still be in the same location pretty much as the pavilion because of the septic system, the electricity, so on and so forth. And based upon the facilities that we had planned with, again, the 3 stalls, and then 2 family stalls, you'd be looking at between $300,000 and $350,000 for those restrooms alone. So the next steps, again, there's no gun to our head. I know people want to get projects done. They want to get them done fast. And I know Rotary Inc. and Healthy West Orange want to get this thing done. But again, we want to make sure that we have, the community support and, town support for this as well. So right now we're receiving public input. We can have additional town council workshops for any and all amended plans that come through. We can have additional public input workshops. The 45% plans need to be approved by town council. The 100% plans need to be approved by town council. And if there's any major changes or deviations from those 100% approved designs, then additional approvals are necessary by town council. So this is not your only bite at the apple right here. This is not the end all be all. There are several more public meetings as required. And there's public meetings that can be added by town council, again, to make sure that, number one, everybody's aware of the project. Number two, that there's buy-in from the community. So again, our process has always been town staff and elected officials are here to listen. In the end, I believe all interests are aligned, but the town and the residents want what is best for the community and the town square. That's the heart of our town. This is the purpose of this meeting, and others, no matter how late in the process it may seem, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry for coming in so late. It doesn't matter. As long as you came, as long as you provide your input, that's what we want. You live near it, you live, 2 blocks from it. You see it every day when you drive by, you see it when you come to events. We want to make sure that whatever we construct is going to be something that you can be proud of and live with, and hopefully enhance your enjoyment of town square, the events, and just the town of Windermere itself. So with that said, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open up to questions, but I'll start with the chat first, and then you can go ahead and raise your little hand icon, just like Doug faded. And I will get to your questions once I get through some of these comments in the chat box. It's going to take me a second to scroll all the way up. So what is the status of the drawings, and do you have the elevations? I know John Fitzgibbon is on right now, and he can go ahead and address that. John, please unmute and answer that question, please.
Yes, thanks, Robert. So right now we're at 45% construction documents, and we do have obviously 45% preliminary elevations as part of that drawing package.
Yeah, thanks, John. What are materials of roof, walls, and trusses? This will greatly affect the cost of maintenance the town will pay. And 3, plans do not show landscaping and renderings. Need to show paths and landscaping. Well, I guess this is a multi-part question. And then 4, need plans with removed and saved trees marked on site. I know we did a arborist survey, tree survey, and received some of the documents back from the arborist, and we'll be working with the tree board on replantings and coming up with a landscape plan. Is there anything addition that I need to add to that, John or Tanya?
Yeah, I think so. Going bullet by bullet, the roof materials are all similar to what we have on our town, new town facilities, aluminum roof. Walls are all concrete block with fiber cement board, and the trusses are all aluminum. So what we wanted to do is make sure that it was easily maintained by the town for long-term sustainability, just like we did with the new town facility. Plans do not show landscaping in the renderings. Well, we just issued the new renderings today, just kind of indicating what the landscaping could be. Obviously, for us, what we want to do is work with the town community, and I'll probably end up doing similar to what I did with the town facilities and working with Vicky and some of the folks, just to once we get to the point where we're doing landscape plans, since we're only at 45 construction % documents, I'll get with them and we'll figure the landscaping plan out, which will ultimately show the paths and landscaping. Right now we're in that redirect mode with what you showed. Do we move the path back? Do we delete some things? So once that area development concrete design gets worked out, we'll figure that one out. And then we do have a tree removal plan. We've met with the tree board numerous times, walked alongside them and tried to minimize the impact. And one of the things that we have done is push the building forward by readjusting the angle just a little bit, allowed us to save more trees than we thought we could. And so I've been walking alongside Susan on that whole thing. So I think we've finally got to the place where we know what we have, and we've really taken that into consideration.
Thanks, John. And again, I don't know if I said this before, but we do have our Public Works Director, Tanya Elliott Moore on. We have John Fitzgibbon on. And we have all council members and the mayor on as well. So they're listening to all the input that you guys are providing tonight and all the questions and answers that you're providing. And I believe this is the most well-attended virtual workshop that we have ever had. Our current count is 88 people. So thank you again for getting the word out for those of you that helped us. But this is the reason we're here, is to listen to you guys. So let me go to the next question. How many members are part of the Rotary Foundation? I believe it is between 3 and 5. And that with Brad Busman, who is the attorney for the foundation itself. I can text him now and see how many there are. So CT, I will get back to you on that. Let me just text him real quick. He's working pro bono, so he gets hours.
And while Robert does that, I can move on to that next question, which was, does the town of Windermere have final approval on who can use or rent the pavilion? And Robert did cover that in great detail, so that question was answered in his presentation.
Yeah, the answer is yes, Nancy. We do have final approval of who can use that pavilion. The only commitment we made was to one event by Healthy West Orange, and that would give the Rotary Inc. exclusive rights to the concession for that one event. Can they apply for other events? Absolutely. But it's completely up to the town whether or not we approve those events or not. My main concerns for the loss of green space and historic tree canopy, including longleaf pines, oaks that have been taped for removal for the footprint of this pavilion, which has grown much larger than original size envisioned. You cannot replace historic tree canopy and little icons blocking it. Stormwater mitigation and carbon sequestration. They do by destroying them. We don't need a concession stand or a stage. You can bring in risers and a tent, just as we did with the Orlando Philharmonic music concert. Understood, Teresa. And again, those are comments that we're more than happy to accept. The Philharmonic event was a very good success. And I'm not 100% sure and don't believe that we'd be able to mirror that with the existing configuration of the pavilion. But again, we do take our tree canopy seriously, and we do work with our arborists and our tree board on any project that we take on, and are more than happy to replant. We can't really plant in kind, but we can make sure that whatever we plant is going to be in the right place and the right tree. Tom's phone. I appreciate all the work our town has put into this. As a 20-year member of Rotary, we want the best for the community, and everyone on the Zoom call is so caring for our town. Hope we as Rotarians can help. Our club is committed to helping. I'm guessing that's Tom Johnson. Is that right, Tom? Is the concession stand only used during events, or is it open on a continuous basis? It would only be open during events that are approved by town council. It is not open on a continuous basis. If electrical service is provided, there is no need for a concession stand. Rotary does not need to provide beer sales for its limited events from a permanent location. The Windermere Brewery is across the street. Temporary setups can be installed for events where needed, tents, etc. The footprint should be smaller and not threaten the tree cover. The design should be adjusted aesthetically, fit the character of the town. The restroom footprint should be, The restroom footprint should be adjusted to reduce the visual scale of the structure face from Main Street. The stage size should defer to the needs of Most special events like the Philharmonic can include a larger temporary stage and cover. And that is from Stephen Fosen, or Steve. I don't want to assume it's Steve Fosen, but anyway, thank you for your comments. And yes, we can take that in consideration. So will Town Council when it comes to the final determination of the area itself. We do have adequate power back there because we have the temporary facilities. So, and we do understand, again, we have the brewery out there now. We work with them on various other events that we currently have. So that is something for us to consider, and I greatly appreciate your input. This is from Joanne Gallen. Is there a plan that shows the trees that are being removed? This is Roger Gatlin. I do believe there is, and we can make sure that that is posted tomorrow. Is that correct, John and Tanya?
Yes, Robert. Eric Hoyer, John, and I walked the entire site, and Eric did a complete full arbors.
Yeah, and sorry I didn't have the graphic up today, but I'll make sure that we have the graphic up so you can take a look at it. From Nancy. Will bathrooms be open 24/7? Who's in charge of cleaning and monitoring them? Like we did with the other bathrooms that we had out there, we usually had either Public Works or the police department open them and close them, and we had our Public Works department maintain them. So this is a town pavilion. Whether it's concessions, restroom stage, it will be the towns. So we will be handling the perpetual maintenance of everything that is involved with this structure. And during the, that's why we have John, to make sure that whatever's constructed, we not only take in the cost for the project itself, but the operation and maintenance of that structure. And thank you, Tanya, for answering that question. Tom Dyther, remember, Rotary Club of Windermere supports 501c3, maybe not 100%, but that true of any 501c3 I know. So this from Councilmember Williams. I know, and this has been advertised, so there can be input. I know that the current proposed building layout is staked out in Town Square to give residents more perspective on actual size. Could we do an open house later this week for residents to stop by and take a look at the placement, how many and which trees are losing and why? Maybe have staff person available to take some questions and comments. We may not be able to do it this week, but there's a possibility we may be able to do it next week. We have the 500 block meeting tomorrow night. We have long range planning on Thursday night. So staff's a little spread thin this week, but that is something that we could possibly accommodate. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name. This is a beautiful project that will bring more organization to our town. No more rented portable restrooms, no more rented tents for the orchestra, food truck night. We'll have better lighting and won't need to rent anymore. No more renting screens for the movie nights, and the list goes on. It is organized. It is organizing what is really offered today, but with a plus. Then Tanya responding to the Gatlins. I understand the intent is not to increase the amount of events, but as you said, if they build it, they will come. Will this be rentable for non-Town of Windermere residents? As I said before, anything that comes through would have to go through myself, a public input meeting, and town council. So the answer to your question is yes. Now you just have to figure out what the probability of that approval would be depending upon what type of event it is. Again, an example was that 5-day holiday concert that they were looking to do was denied because it was too many days. And because of the input from the neighbors that were adjacent to that event. They didn't want to add more noise and issues for those residents. So that's why it was denied. And you'll have your opportunity to comment whether or not those events are approved, denied, or what issues you may have that we can possibly reconcile if that were to be approved. But you'll have at least 2 bites at the apple for any of those events that were to come through. I think Liz Beavers, I think a pavilion could be a great asset to the town, but I do have concerns about the size, placement. I understand about septic drain fields and not building on top of them, but wondering if that could be redesigned, so the pavilion could be moved back and angle shifted so it fits the space better and leaves more green space up front rather than wasted space in the back. And I think that, again, John had addressed that at the last workshop, but that's something that we'll definitely address as we move forward and as we present to town council. We'll take a look at moving it back. We'll take a look at orientation, stuff like that, to make sure, again, that it's something that the entire town can live with, be proud of, and we can get the highest and best use out of it for the events that need it. In the age of food trucks, box lunches packed by local restaurant, food delivery apps, this is from Pam, and sandwich pickups at grocery stores, there is no need for concession stand in a public building. The idea is a relic from the past. Thank you for your comment, Pam. To have a concession, keeps going. To have a concession stand in the proposed pavilion would incur unnecessary additional expenses to our town, including selection and supervision of potential concessionaires, plus maintenance and cleaning of the food and storage areas. It would be unused almost all of the time and would compete with local businesses. The few hours it would be staffed. I recommend the square footage plan for concession stand be eliminated. This will allow for a smaller overall footprint of the pavilion, thus saving more of the park for green space. Thank you for your comments. And I believe that a lot of people have agree with that comment as well. Byron, there are 6 board members on the foundation, the Rotary Foundation. Thank you, Byron. So I didn't have to wait for Brad to get back to me. From Karen Harrison, there are 7 more. It's either 6 or 7. So typically you have not an even number, you have an odd number. So I'm just going to go with 7 on this one. But I'll get you guys that number hopefully before this meeting is over. From Jim Willard, will the town put a limit on the number of annual events? Right now, they haven't. And the reason for that is, are there events that may go away? Are there events that may, benefit the town, that the town may be welcome to? Craft Beer Fest went away. If Craft Beer Fest comes back, is that something the town would entertain? That would be by the board and for the town for a year. But again, it'll be each one will be evaluated as they submit their special event permit. Teresa Myers, why isn't the architecture more compatible and with keeping with the Florida frame vernacular of our historic buildings? This design does not complement our historic town hall architecture, aesthetics, or traditions. And I think, as John stated, the further along we get in this process, the more we will be matching those and incorporating your ideas and comments into those or into this design. As I said before, the first was more of a placement, more of a structure look, and very vanilla. I think as we're moving along in the process, it's getting more and more detailed, and you will have input, and town council would have to approve the final 45% plans and the 100% plans. Tom is saying yes from his iPhone, so I'm guessing that's when I asked if it was Tom Johnson. Why is the back of the pavilion open to forest? This is not blend in with the existing town hall and Cal Palmer building. Andy, I'm trying to understand your comment. I believe when we talked on the 26th, as far as little open air areas, it was for ventilation and for making sure that there was a breeze coming through. If that is your question, if not, please raise your hand and we'll get back to that one. But that little open space, as we heard on October 26th, was more for ventilation, getting a breeze through and some air through the structure itself. Heather's iPhone. I think a pavilion could be a great addition to the town, and once location, size, placement, design additions are addressed, it could be a lovely addition. Move back and angle shifted would provide more green space in front for everyone. The performances at the pavilion and at town hall. Susan Carter. The trees that are being removed are tagged. The last time I walked the site, 5 trees were being removed. I'm hoping that we can make every effort to save as many as possible, especially the pines. The footprint of the building is staked, but is unclear. The current design of the building crosses the sidewalk and will result in the removal of an oak that has been tagged with tape. Again, we will continue to work with the tree board and our arborists to see what, if anything, that we can do to save those trees and or do replanting. Tom and Sharon Craven. Sound is a concern for us directly behind the pavilion, and we completely understand that. Can there be a taller wall behind the stage? Also, I like the idea of plantings that reduces sound. My concern is the subwoofers, that their sound carry much farther. And I hate it again that you're going to make me say this word, but an acoustician will be able to take a look at this as an expert. I know we have local experts as far as sound and whatnot, but we'll have them take a look at, the stage itself, the acoustics, how it's being directed, and what, if anything, we can do behind the stage to make sure that we are not creating additional noise pollution to those that are already experiencing it. If someone applies for an event, what would be the criteria upon which the event is approved or denied? It'll vary. How many days, how many people are they looking at? How much noise are they going to create? How much traffic are they going to create? What are they benefiting? There's a lot of variables that go into each and every event. Some people may choose an event during a certain period of time where staff cannot support it, whether it's from Public Works, police department, or maybe an event that is during a heavy season to where we pretty much have 3 events out of 1 month. So we would want to give reprieve to those people that are having to experience that. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. And I can't really create a criteria, because if they meet those criteria, then it's going to be hard for us to deny them based on that criteria. But it's going to be based on a case-by-case scenario, that if it's a right place, right time, and right for the town, then I believe the town will consider it. The town administration council will be different in the future from what it is now. Therefore, any restrictions decided upon now are subject to change over time. That's absolutely true. But what will not change is the voice of the public. If the public is vocal against something, whether it's those public input meetings and the town council meetings, it is more difficult for a town council to approve something that doesn't have that public support. So yes, councils will change, but their responsibility to the citizens does not. So that's what the only thing I can say to that, Anime. Will there be a maximum decibel level so that the amplification doesn't get out of control? Yes, we'll try to work with the engineers to figure out what is an adequate decibel level, but we will maintain, when we have events, we typically want to make sure that we are not at the point to where it's going to go over the noise ordinance. With food trucks, we reduce the closeout time. With some of the other events, we're closing them out earlier, like at 8 o'clock. So we will work to make sure that whatever noise, and again, I say pollution because it's just, the sound does travel, to reduce that as much as possible. Is it going to completely eliminate it? No. But can we work with you, the residents, and with the engineers to try to reduce that as much as possible? Absolutely. Bonnie, I walked the staked out pavilion layout last week. From my measurement, it seems as though the pavilion structure is about 10 feet wider than the town hall. The structure should not be wider than town hall. It should be smaller structure that enhances the northwest corner of the town square grounds and not the feature. I do think this structure could be utilized on a much smaller scale, angled better, and lots of landscaping behind it to keep the sound issues from residents that live close by. For movie night, the stage is currently facing the basketball courts that people do not sit on. With the enclosed side is going to limit the areas that can be used to see the screen. The angle of the orchestra event was great and allowed all the town square grounds to be utilized for seating. Thank you for having workshops, listening to the residents. Thank you for your comments. And again, thank you, Bonnie, for being a great community partner for the town of Windermere and Windermere Police Department. Excuse me while I take a sip of water, by the way. From the bylaws of the Rotary Club, Inc. I'm guessing that means 7. So I think 7 is your answer as far as how many people make up the Windermere Rotary, Inc. Nancy Nix, I agree with Bonnie. The pavilion should not dominate over town hall. Karen, who is responding to the actual bylaws, is saying that the board shall consist of 7 directors. So thank you, Karen. CT, I can only speak for Wine and Dine and Music Among the Lakes. By no means would I want these events be the decision factor for should we have a pavilion or not. But to clarify, neither of these events currently could utilize the pavilion. The pavilion would actually minimize Windermere Wine and Dine and Music Among the Lakes, would not fit in the pavilion, and would remove the space that we could actually hold the event. So thank you, CT, for your input on those events that you currently hold. I do believe that Holiday Hoopla would not have use of the pavilion as well, the stage itself, and I don't believe that Parks and Recreation would have a use for the stage itself as well. iPhone. Thank you to everyone who has been working so hard on this project. I think it is important for everyone to remember that this is a generous donation to our town. This will add value to our homes, and our families and neighbors will enjoy this new amenity to our town. I think the drawings shown this evening look great and are appropriately sized and designed to fit the evolving aesthetics of our town. This project is better than what we have, especially as it relates to controlling sound at existing events. Not to mention, this project will reduce the cost of our existing events as we can eliminate stage rentals and portalets. Milani and Jeff Walters, 605 Oakdale Street. Teresa Stressman-Mars. The additional noise, crowds, lighting, and traffic this pavilion brings to the Windermere residents on Forest, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th Avenue is huge. Additionally, the town square's green space is already dealing with overuse by crowds of people who do not live in Windermere, who attend the food truck nights, and impacts the trees, landscaping, monuments in town square are ongoing as these folks do not monitor their kids who climb all over the trees, breaking their branches. And on monuments, they folks do not respect the town square because they don't live here. How does this benefit the town of Windermere? How do you plan to beef up police presence to stop this from happening and budget for their presence there? With every event that we have, whether it is serving alcohol or not, or the amount of attendance at these events, that's how we project how many police officers, public works will be in attendance at these events. Are we supposed to parent your children? No. Do we do everything we can to make sure that we minimize any liabilities and or vandalism, stuff like that? Absolutely. So we can only do our best, but parents have to do their job as well. Brandy, asking for someone trying to get on. Is there a phone number to dial in? There's nothing listed on the website. I don't know, but it will be taped, and it If they want to text you a question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. Ron Mathis, thank you for your care in answering the questions. Great project, and thankful to see the participation. Ron Mathis. So currently we are at 85 participants. And who will insure the pavilion? The town of Windermere will. It'll be a structure that is owned and operated by the town, so we will be insuring it. So at this time, since Bonnie was the last one for the chat, I'm going to go ahead and call on those that have raised their hands. And then if there's some people like public speaking, some people don't, completely understand. So I'll call on those that have their hands raised. And then again, if you have a question, comment, you can go ahead and put it in the chat box, and it's going to be of the record because again, we make sure we record these and we post the minutes to town council. So with that said, I will start with Doug Fay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm opposed to it. I live at 506 Butler Street, and it's about a block away from me. I just don't think it's anything that Windermere needs. Windermere doesn't need to be advertised as far as I'm concerned. And then I read in the paper this morning that the Hamlins are having a homeless problem. Well, to me, that looks like a perfect spot for homeless people to hang out. And
Okay.
Windermere has had a hard time controlling its public properties, the boat ramps and all this other stuff. And one other issue, it doesn't seem like Windermere has full control of this thing, with the Rotary Club involved, and I think they're great, but Windermere doesn't have full control with it. And that's, I just don't think it's anything Windermere needs. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Doug, for your comments. I'll go ahead and lower your hands, and then we will go to Paul. Paul, if you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please. Still there, Paul? If not, I'll come back to you. Tom Stroop.
You caught me right in the middle of taking a drink. Can you hear me okay, Robert?
I was on mute.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Paul.
Tom, if you do, just do me a favor. I know Paul.
No worries.
I'll let Paul go first, and then I'll get back to you. All right.
God. Hey guys. It
My
seems
biggest
like the
FSU
town-
fan.
It seems like the town has bitten off a whole lot to chew. They got a management, they got to collect the money, they got to have police, they got to have cleanup and all that. But also, I think if the town's going to take $1 million, they might want to revamp the back of the town hall and fix up town hall and put it up there on the backstage. That's all
Yeah.
I got to think about.
Thanks, Paul. And, our Knolls are looking good for next year, but just for clarification, that $1 million is not the town's. It is a grant from the district for a pavilion. So we cannot use that money in anything but the pavilion itself. We do have plans on renovating the town hall and improving the town hall without it losing its historic designation. So we are working on that. But again, this is something that is a separate pot of funds that is coming from a separate jurisdiction that is earmarked specifically for this.
So what about managing it and collecting the money and the police department and all that stuff? Who pays for all that?
The taxpayers do. So whenever somebody has a special event, we can come up with a rental fee for the pavilion, for the restrooms,
Okay.
for public works, for the police department. But again, typically for special events, we only, especially if they're done by a board or committee that the town is supporting, we don't want to take money away from them. So what we typically do is, because that money is reinvested into the town, so we just typically charge them for the public works and for the police department's time.
All right, well, good luck, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. All right, Tom, now you're up, buddy.
All right. Can you hear me again?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. Appreciate it. I've been involved a lot lately, and I've seen the workings of our town government, and I'm very impressed. Saying that, there's a few points I like to make. And this is just coming from an old cop. You know, noise and traffic has always been the #1 complaint in every community, even in big cities, New York City, larger ones. Noise and traffic is still the #1 complaint because it affects people where they live. Most people that don't live near the downtown area probably would like this pavilion. This is really going to affect us more than anybody else. You know, even during this workshop, the #1 complaint of most people that I've seen has been noise and or traffic. So by design, I mean, a sound stage is intended to amplify sound. I mean, it's not intended. I know you're going to have your, whatever you call them, your acousticians or
Yeah,
whatever.
don't make me say it again, Tom.
Yeah,
Please.
I won't. And we do appreciate that. Believe me, we appreciate the effort
Yeah.
you're putting into that. But the reality is a sound stage is designed to amplify sound. I mean, that's what it's for. So the #1 complaint nationwide, and the #1 complaint on this workshop has been noise, and we're still considering building something downtown that's is designed specifically to increase noise and ultimately increase traffic. So we spent the last at least 5 years fighting Bird Island because of noise and traffic. And we spent more than that time fighting the boat ramp issue down here by my house because of noise and traffic. And Oakdale Street is still fighting a battle of noise and traffic. So for me, the most obvious question is, why are we building something that is going to increase noise and traffic when that seems to be the biggest concern of all the residents of Windermere? You know, Windermere is still 95% residential. It's only like 5% commercial. So I think what we forget sometimes is that, you know, we are a neighborhood. And we got to keep remembering the reason that people are worried about noise and traffic is because it's our front yards. So when we build this pavilion, it's not just affecting a downtown area, say like Orlando or even a Winter Garden, which is bigger. We're literally putting a soundstage in the middle of our neighborhood. 95% of the Windermere is residential. So we're putting a soundstage in the middle of our neighborhood. And I'm not opposed to commercial growth. Believe me, I go to all the events. I mean, I'm a fan of all of them. But all commercial growth in downtown Windermere in the last few years has been in our neighborhood, which I mean by neighborhood is the downtown area. So the last few years, when we've had, you know, food trucks, farmers markets, you know, town hall parties, and all the events that go along with that. And then at 6th and Main, we're going to lose an entire block to commercial growth. So it's like a 1, 2, 3 punch. It's like everything is just being thrown downtown. And now we're proposing a soundstage. There's not only going to be a loss of green space, which, by the way, open space and green space are kind of the same thing. So eliminating the sidewalk and that part of the basketball court is still not adding more open space. It's the same open space. So what I'm saying is, if this pavilion had been like one thing, Robert, it might not have been a big issue, but all these are cumulative. So you may say that it's only going to be, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 events a year, but when you combine it with all the current events that are already going on there, it's just adding 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 more events onto what's already happening down there. So all we're saying is that we want a lot of consideration for this because this is going in our neighborhood, and we've already been hit with the last, you know, 4 or 5 major construction events that have happened downtown Orlando have all brought more noise and traffic to our neighborhood. So we're just saying, as residents of this downtown neighborhood, we want a lot more consideration to be given to this because it's going to affect us more than anybody else. And we've all compromised, you know, our quality of life already. It's not, people say, well, you shouldn't have moved downtown if you didn't like it. Well, the reality was it wasn't like this 20 years ago.
Right.
It wasn't like this 10 years ago. So what we're saying is, yes, we agree. We do live downtown. We have made a lot of concessions for the food trucks, for the parties at town hall, you know, for the brewery, we've made concessions for all of that. Now, all we're saying is that all of these things are being thrown into the exact same area and are affecting us more than anybody else down here. And that's kind of the position I'm coming from. You know, Windermere is, like I say, 95% residential, and the people love coming here because it's a little town. It's small and it's quiet. I don't think anybody in Windermere really wants this. If even people that do want this soundstage probably don't want it near them, to be perfectly honest with you. They probably don't. If you ask them, if I can move it right now over to Palmer Park or move it right now over to where the, you know, in front of another neighborhood or something, most people would probably be just as concerned as we are. So we really do appreciate you listening. We do appreciate the things that you're doing. And my suggestion, for what it's worth, to sum this up, is that we make this much smaller. I love Robert's design. I love Steven's design. Make it much smaller. Definitely new bathrooms. We all know we need those. I mean, that's something the town just has responsibility to have. No rentals, because I think that you answered it very concisely. We can rent it out to other people. And the reality is the town council can approve an event every month if they wanted to. My suggestion is that we don't rent it out to anybody else. We get the new bathrooms. I don't think we need a concession stand down there. And as far as the storage area goes, because that takes up space also, I'm the one, I cleared out that previous storage area that the town had down there, and there was nothing in there worth keeping. I don't even know why it was even there. I mean, I took more stuff in there than the town did. So we really need more storage area either down there. And that's, listen, once again, I appreciate all you guys are doing, but the reality is it's way, way too big. I like Steven's design. We do need the bathrooms. I don't want to rent it to any outside events. We have enough going on now. We don't need a concession stand. And I'm in the process of working with Andy Williams about an effective sound ordinance. So hopefully we can give you an answer on that too, because I don't like to complain about something unless I give an alternative. So for now, we're kind of working on a sound ordinance. Also about amending the agreement. My vote is to amend the agreement. I would rather suffer whatever consequences there are by amending that agreement than being forced to live with something that we really don't want. So I know that we're out there in the 11th hour. I know you guys have done all the proper notifications and that it's our fault for not getting involved sooner. But the reality is that now that we do know, almost everybody, you say almost 90 people have been on this workshop, almost 90 people out of all of them, almost all of them are saying the same thing. Make it smaller, public restrooms, yes, no rentals, no concession stand, and a sound ordinance. So for me, it's a vote towards Steven's design and all those other things that I just listed. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Tom. Thank you, Tom. And then just real quick on a housekeeping thing, I'm going to make John Fitzgibbon the host for a second, and I'll be right back. But I think John wanted to address one of your concerns. So John, you have controls right now?
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, Robert.
All right, I'll be right back, I promise.
All right. Hey, Tom. Hey, thank you so much for your comments, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, Robert and I are just taking marching orders from the council, and we're just moving forward on, you know, what we want to make sure that the residents like. But there are some points that I do think is important for us to understand from an acoustician's point of view. Right now, we don't have control over the sound. This would provide that to some extent because of the arcilinear shape of it. And so what we want to do is be very poignant in controlling dB levels and then controlling sound. As you know, sound travels, you know, to points. And so that was kind of one of the reasons why, you know, we have the shape that it is, and we have the acousticians on board with us to make sure that it's an improvement over what we currently have to being able to control the sound. So I did want to make that point. The other point that I do want to make is that if we were to redesign it with Stevens, and this is only through me meeting with multiple Parks and Rec and also meeting with the tree boards and meeting with everybody else, if we do put the bathrooms in the back, that would actually push the building farther forward, which does allow us to kind of recapture some green space around the sides, but it also reduces the amount of green space in the front. So as we consider all these things, I think that's important for people to understand from an engineering aspect what comments we're making tonight and what that ultimately means for the footprint of the building pushing forward. In addition to that, I've spent an enormous amount of time with Susan Carter and the tree board and Parks and Rec to make sure that we're very honoring of the trees, while at the same time, anything that we do to push the pavilion back begins to affect tree roots, septic, and everything else that's currently in place. So as we consider this as a town and all of our residents, pushing it back becomes a bigger effect and a greater effect on the trees that we're trying to save. And so we've been very surgical in the trees that we've been looking at, and the ones that we're removing are camphors and, other trees. And through the shift of the building, we've been allowing us to save some of the longleaf pines. And so the presentation tonight that we did with the footprint of the building being partially over where the existing community room was, and archilinear, making it where the restrooms are off to the right in close proximity to the greatest access we have to the restrooms off of Fifth. All those things were highly considered. And so I think it's important for the residents to understand we've taken great care in trying to figure out that balance of trees and neighbors, and pushing it back is not an answer to me, because that gets it closer to the residents on Forest. And so those are all the things that we've done and taken into consideration. So that I just wanted you to know how much work and time and effort we put into something that we've been working on since 2019.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know you've been working on it a while, because Robert brought that up when we first started this meeting. But the reality is that I would rather the restrooms pushed back are not the concern of the people on Forest. The restrooms is not going to go any further back than the old storage building used to go. And reducing the size from side to side will make up for the space that we're going to lose going backwards. And I think that if we go out there and map out Stephen's design, we might have a better idea of what that footprint would actually be. And that's where I would kind of like to start with this process. The biggest concern with almost everybody that spoke so far is it's too big, and they're afraid of the noise. So if we could take Stephen's rendition and just go out there and kind of stake it out a little bit, and maybe get some ideas of where we could shift it one way or the other to maybe save some trees by pushing it back a few feet. I don't think you're getting a lot of opposition to that, but I think we need to start with Stephen's smaller design and then go out there and paste it off and see exactly where we could put it that might accommodate all of us.
Hey, John, I'm back. So if you want to go ahead and make me host again, I appreciate it.
How do I do that?
Just click on the right top corner of my name, and it should say make host. It's okay. It's like our 1,000th one. So
You're now the host.
Welcome
all
back.
right.
Welcome back, Robert.
Thank you all for having me back.
So I don't really
All
want
right.
to turn this. I don't want to really turn this into a Tom Troop show. I was just trying to get my opinion. And for what it's worth, I do think I think that Stephen does have a good alternative plan. And I think at least maybe map that out and walk it out and see where we can go from here.
Tom, you are a member of the public, a council elect, and it is always good to hear from people that are directly impacted by the decisions made by our council. And, as we see in the chat, a lot of people do agree with your comments. So, those are things that we want to hear, we want to look at. Again, it may seem like the 11th hour, but we would rather get it done right the first time, as opposed to having to go back and redo something. So again, thank you for your comments, Tom.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and lower your hand. Oops, sorry, I think I lowered somebody else's hand. Whoever I lowered, can you please go ahead and do that? Stephen Withers.
Just, my name's been used several times here, and you put a sketch in of mine. I'd like to
Apologize without getting your permission, but that's been circulating, and I didn't want people to say, "Oh, well, did you see Stephen's?"
No, that's fine. But let me point out a couple of issues. One is, if you look at the rendering, everything to the north of the stage, to the right of the stage and this thing, is the bathrooms. Those are bathrooms that we had there before, that we are replacing with something with a lot easier to maintain, a lot more contemporary facilities. So that's not changing. what I did was there was a discussion in a meeting that said, we don't need a concession stand. What could you do if the left half of the building disappeared? And I said, well, you could put it behind the stage. The bathroom block would not change in size. The stage would not change in size. The only thing my sketch did to reduce the building was took off the concession stand. So just that whole bathroom block going behind the stage doesn't reduce the size of the project at all, really, except for the possible elimination of the concession stand. So that's first concept, that it's not a real reduction in square footage, et cetera. Also, when I did that sketch, I really didn't know where the trees or the septic tank were. I just said, this is a possibility.
Mhm.
I think it's something that may need to take a look at, but I somewhat agree with John that we don't necessarily want the stage to move closer to town hall. In terms of the stage, I think what we tried to do when we started this project a long time ago, John and I were helping with this, was we were trying to take the stages on the north end of the town hall, and every time we have a food truck, there's this stage or a truck or something with a lot of noise. We were trying to control that and give it a house that could send the noise east instead of west. So that's sort of what we were trying to do, is replace something that exists every food truck night as opposed to augment and add more noise. I think the biggest thing we need to look at in terms of sound control is vegetation. You're going to have buildings and mass to do some of it, but if we can landscape between the existing trees back there and put some of these hedges or landscaping in front, even will help control sound and move it in the direction we want to do. So not only do you need a acoustical engineer, but you need a really good understanding of the landscaping. So those are sort of my comments. I have one more comment, and that is, this has been a fantastic meeting, Robert. You've done a great job. I really appreciate what you and Tanya and John have done. But I think that tomorrow night is a much bigger meeting. It's going to be a much more impactful impact on our town than this pavilion. That whole corner from 6 on Main Street needs to be really, really looked at carefully. And that we have less control over than this we do, but we need to make sure we have our input onto that project. And I know that Susan Carter and all sorts of people have been working hard with the developer, and that's great. So thank you for letting me have my comments.
And
Angela wants to say something.
And Angela, we're sharing the computer tonight, and I just wanted to say again, yes, thank you to everyone for all the thought and effort that's going into this. And I honestly believe that with some adjusting and scaling down, and I agree about not having the concession stand, because if you took that off, and you can balance even by putting half the restrooms on the other side or tucking things back, with a little more work tweaking, I think this is going to be a wonderful asset to the town. It's just at the moment a little too big, a little too dominating, but it has fabulous potential. I think we just need to tweak it a little more, and in the end I think we'll be very, very happy with it. And I love the fact that everybody's getting to say now, you know, that's my opinion. It's wonderful that the town now is listening to all the other concerns, and I thank everyone for the interest this has generated. And I agree with Stephen that what happens on the corner of the roundabout is critically important as well. So please come to the meeting tomorrow night too.
I would like to say one thing more, and that is Tom Struth's one of my heroes, and I really understand where he's coming from and appreciate it. And everything we can do to help what he's talking about will be a benefit for the town.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Angela. We appreciate your comments. And again, thank you again for the PSA for tomorrow night. That is going to be a really big redevelopment in the town of Windermere. So the more people that attend, provide their comments, is going to be very welcome. And then again, you know, we do want to thank the people that helped us advertise this as well. You know, we only have so many capabilities as trying to get this meeting out there. But people putting it out on Facebook, NextDoor, what other social media apps there are, but we do want to thank those that helped out as well. Teresa Schressman Myers, you're next.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you again, Robert and staff, for allowing us to come forward with our thoughts. Again, I want to reiterate what Stephen said. The best sound barriers out there are the trees. The leaves, the branches, and trunks all contribute to the deflection of sound waves by creating a physical barrier. The large, rigid tree trunks are by far the best sound deflectors, especially those with dense bark like the oaks, the longleaf pines, and those big trees. And in addition to bouncing back toward the noise source, deflected sound waves can change direction and interfere with each other. This destructive interference has a noise canceling effect with trees. So if you're taking out more big tree canopy, you're actually adding to the noise problem. Over the last 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of tree canopy has been lost in the town square. We've lost 3 or 4 of the large oaks. We've lost longleaf pines that have been cut back down there for I don't know what reason, but we need to replace what we're losing. When I go down to the town square parks or any of the parks in Windermere, I go there to be under the trees. The trees bring the heat factor down by 15 or 20 degrees just by standing under them. And we've lost so much significant canopy by doing that front porch project and by doing projects like these. So keeping the trees is huge, not only just for beauty, but for sound, noise, lighting. But the most important thing they do is the stormwater mitigation that does not go into the Butler chain that these big guys do, in addition to the sound buffer. The trees can't speak for themselves. We've got to speak for them. And if we keep deforesting like this, we're going to have more and more issues with stormwater inundation. And we're already seeing that. Post-hurricane here, the lakes are still up high in both Windermere and Gotha. And those hurricanes came and went in July. So this basin, this Butler chain of lake is a huge water recharge area. And it's not just for us, it's for all of South Florida, Shingle Creek, the Everglades, all the water sources here in the Butler chain in the Gotha Basin, this recharge area. And we can't keep deforesting like this without impacts and flooding impacts to our homes and our town. So I can't speak enough for, we've got to be more careful on these developments and not just be taking these big trees out and thinking, oh, I can just plant a 1-inch or 2-inch tree to replace a 40 or 50-inch or a 30-inch pine. You can't do it. It doesn't do the same thing. Does not have the same effect. Again, the impacts to the town residents. How does it benefit the town residents? We got to be asking these questions. How are we bringing in? Are we bringing this in for outsiders or are we bringing it in for the town residents? So those are my thoughts. Thank you for allowing us to speak. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And I think, you know, a lot of those comments you made are documented in the chat, so I really appreciate that. The next one we have is Vicky, and then we'll have Karen Fay on deck.
Thank you, Robert. I've got 2 questions, but I have a couple of comments. So I'll make my comments first, please. Is that all right?
Hey, here for you, Vicky.
Okay. So I personally believe the pavilion is too large, that it needs to be reduced in size and moved back. And I believe that we need more green space in front of the pavilion because when I am in town square, I see a lot of kids on the basketball courts, a lot of kids running around and playing. And when we have food truck nights or other events where kids are there with parents, they use those basketball courts. So taking away that one little basketball court is not going to be enough, in my opinion, to compensate for where the building sits. So I believe it does need to be redesigned. I'm not sure that, no offense to Stephen Withers, but I'm not sure that Stephen's design is the perfect alternative either. I think that we need to kind of look at it bigger and see how we can reduce this and shift this a bit so that we can save more of our green space. Still trying to keep as many trees as we can. In the rendering that you're looking at right now, it shows that there are shadows there. Those shadows don't exist. If you're standing there at you know, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, those shadows don't exist because there's been a number of trees that have had to been taken down in Town Square because they were unhealthy. So it's going to take a lot to get shadows and some canopy back in this area to help people feel like they're in the shade while they're walking events. So I just want to point out, these shadows don't exist. And the other comment I wanted to make was, I'm very happy to hear that a sound engineer or an acoustic engineer, which is what I'm going to
keep it as an acoustic engineer because I cannot pronounce it.
is going to be involved, because I think that is absolutely critical. And as you pointed out earlier, this is the vanilla version, and that hopefully in future drawings, it will tie in better with the library and town hall and the Cal Palmer building. So here are my questions. I have two.
Sure.
When will the town council need to vote on the 45% plan? And how many square feet under roof is this structure versus the old buildings with the bathrooms? And I certainly do recognize that this has 8 bathrooms versus 2. So those are my 2 questions.
Sure. The first one is to be determined. You know, I believe they were hoping to get this onto the February town council agenda, but based on the input from the public, I believe this will probably be pushed to the March agenda with the possibility of having another workshop over the 45% plans. So make sure you're staying on top of the website, the app, all of our announcements. If not, again, everybody on here has my cell phone, my email. Just keep checking in. We'll let you know when it's going to be popping up. As far as the square footage, I'll have to defer to John Fitzgibbon.
Okay, I'm here.
So the difference between square footage between the old community room and bathrooms versus.
Yeah, so when we did the overlay, and this doesn't even include that empty space, the difference in size of the building is about 500 square feet. Difference from what the community room was, Vicky. In addition to that, I know the picture shows shadows, but that was actually a picture that was taken in the early morning. So there are shadows that come over that area, but eventually what we want to do, and the Rotary is actually committed to it, is to plant larger species, live oaks, you know, maybe 6 to 8 inch caliper, wherever we want to work that with you, to replace the few trees that we're taking out. And some of them are campers and everything else, but we all want to be prepared to make sure that we aren't, you know, affecting sight lines, but will at the same time provide shade for those in the future that come. So we do want to do a great replanning on the landscape plan, and that's where, you know, at the end of the day, we'd reach out to you. The rendering we did was just a placeholder to just show how landscaping can, you know, offset the face of the structure. So anyways, that's it's kind of like what you and I did for the town facilities, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
We worked on that plan 4 times.
Yeah, so we'll get there with you. For us, it was just a placeholder, no different than the placeholders I did with the new town facilities. And ultimately, you and I got together and we landscaped it beautifully.
Well, the architect landscaped it. We just tweaked their design.
Well, actually, the landscaper planted it beautifully.
Well, that's true. The architect
Based on
designed
your
it.
design, yeah.
All right. So yeah, those are my comments. So thank you, Robert. And thank you, John.
Yes.
Thank you, Vicky. All right, next in line, we have Karen Fay. Hey, Karen.
Hey, Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. I'm sorry I came late to this party. I just have one comment. Well, I guess it's 2 questions. One is, if this is funded by something outside the town, can we restrict it to only town residents? And secondly, John was nice enough to save the plaque for June Kent Raboy, that was our very first librarian, that the plaque was always on the community building. And I understand it's now in Tanya's office. Somehow I would like to see June recognized, have that plaque somewhere. I don't know if it's on the pavilion or where it's going to be, but I'd like to not see that get lost. Do you
Yeah,
have, do you have an idea as to what the town might be considering doing with that?
that question, yes, we would say, in this spot was, we would have the plaque and have like a little statement as far as the library and whatnot. And then your first question, as far as being residents only, we would again take every event case by case. So I don't know if we can restrict it to residents only, but the only times that area would be reserved or rented out would be for a special event. And again, that would incorporate public input as well as town council approval.
Okay, I'm thinking back as to the dock that we got from a grant. I guess that something.
Oh, for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
that we can't put it somewhere else or whatever the case may be, because it was specifically for that point. So I'm just questioning the monies that would be allocated for this. If it comes from an outside source, can we then keep it for residents only? I don't know if that could happen. That was my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The only conditions that we had was to hold a Healthy West Orange event one time a year.
Okay.
But I would have to defer to Heather on that. We can get you that answer. But again, any and all events that come through the town, it would be evaluated on who does it benefit, and all the other things that we talked about: traffic, amount of people, amount of noise, so on and so forth. So,
Right.
It might be an outside source. It may be Windermere
Right.
that wants to put on a program that benefits something in town. So I'm not sure if we want to handcuff ourselves in that, but I can check with Heather on that.
Okay, and I appreciate you doing this. And again, tomorrow night, is it tomorrow night's Zoom only, or is it town hall as well?
It's Zoom, and the reason why is because we get a lot more participation via Zoom.
Right. I can believe that.
And I think it's a lot more productive via Zoom, because again, it gives people the opportunity, whether they're in town, they have other commitments, they can be in their car, they can be in another state, another country, and still participate.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I came late.
Yeah, no problem. And to
Okay.
answer Zach's question, town hall rentals are not for residents only. Residents have a different rate. And then the last hand that I have up is Brandy.
Hello. Okay, so first, I'm going to read something from the person that couldn't get on the call. So that is Sarah Lopez from 110 Forest Street. And her opinion is that we don't need anything. She doesn't even think we need the bathroom. She doesn't think we need any of this, because there's, already too many things happening and too much problems with traffic and things of that nature. So that's her official thing. So you have that. And I'm sure she'll email that to you guys as a follow-up. And then in terms of, where we stand on it, my husband and I, is that I think at a bare minimum, we definitely need bathrooms. I don't like to use the portalettes myself, or with a kid. So I do think that's the bare minimum. If we have anything at all, I think it needs to be a drastically scaled down version of some sort of small type band shell. It doesn't need to be a huge thing. I can see the benefit of having a stage. Some of the events, I mean, the reality is they're already there. We already have live bands and DJs at food truck nights. We already have, live bands and other things. We had the Nutcracker performance, over the winter time. So the events are still there. They're still going to happen. And I don't see a problem maybe with a smaller version of a stage, or what I picture as an old traditional band shell that you might have seen like in the 50s or 60s, something that's small and makes sense also with the town architecture. The hometown I grew up in has a like the band shell in the front and just literally 2 bathrooms attached to the back. It's a very, very small footprint. Something like that, could function for what we need. The acoustical engineers, which is what I call it, because I don't say the other word either.
Yeah, I'm never going to say that word again.
Yeah, just go with acoustical engineer. That's totally true. I've had actually quite a few conversations with council and some other people regarding that. I used to actually work with sound stage crews and stuff when I was up north. And, you know, for example, I was explaining to them, you can be in a theater, even one that's on Broadway. And depending on the shape of the arc of the stage and everything and the way the sound bounces back into the audience, you can have one sound wave cross out another sound wave and literally have no sound at one location. And so to me, I mean, I understand the front of the building was curved, but the rest of it where the actual stages is very boxy and not really going to push that sound forward in the way that it needs to for acoustical engineering. But the other thing I would say too is that, you know, I agree with everyone else. We need to think about whether or not this is the best thing for the residents or everyone else who comes to town. And I think in some ways we also need to defer to our committees and the things that are happening now. If Parks and Recs doesn't see the need for this pavilion, the wine and dine things that happen, they don't see a need for the pavilion, that they're not going to utilize it, you know, then who are we really building it for if it's not going to in some way benefit the things that we're already having? Because I mean, I do attend a lot of them. I attend most things, but we do have a lot already. And I think there's only so much more this town can handle without having a major adverse impact to the residents and what people have to deal with. So that would be it for me.
All right, thank you, Brandy.
Yep.
I'll lower your hand. You know, as you can see in the chat box, we do have additional comments from Theli Roper, Teresa Myers, Nancy, Zach, Bonnie, and then Steve. So again, I believe, you know, what we've gone over is, I think, the intent and then moving forward with this project. I think, you know, the intention was pure, and, you know, as things move along, you know, we start getting more, not only attention, but input. And I think like nights like tonight, I know it's been a long night for everybody. I know we're taking away from, you know, your family time, your leisure time and stuff like that. So this is what a town is supposed to operate as. So we will definitely gather all of your information. We'll take it into consideration, and we will present to town council either in a workshop setting or a town council setting, whichever they should choose, and work through these issues. And we'll make sure that we advertise it, so you're there and you're able to be present. And again, the intent is to create something that the town will be happy with, the town can support, and will not create additional headaches for those residents that live near the town square. So with that said, I just want to thank all of you for participating. Again, this is our probably most well-attended Zoom meeting ever. I do want to reiterate that we do have a very important meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I'll be assisting and moderating that as well for the 500 block development. So please make sure that you attend that meeting. I know it's hard for 2 nights in a row, but that one is going to have a really big impact on the look, feel, and what happens in the downtown area. So again, I thank you all for your involvement. I thank for town council for attending tonight, as well as town staff. And with that said, again, have a blessed night. Everybody take care. Happy New Year. And my thoughts and prayers and heart goes out to, you know, Steve Potts's family, Peggy Collins's family, Raleigh Allen's family, and Jackie Report's family. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and end it. And thank you all very much.